Is it dark in here, or is it just me? I don't know how we got here. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing here. I hope I don't wake up with my leg chained to a radiator and nothing but a saw near me. Oh good. The lights are back on. Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're doing the best day of the month, the celebration of your guys' creativity, your ingenuity, your abilities to take the prompts that I give you and run off into the sunset, or in this case, the darkness. Looking forward to seeing what you guys have done. We're going to go over the prompt here in a second, but number one, before we get started, if you enjoy what I do here, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through what we're doing here today, which is LMIAY, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we just read your guys' stories. You don't have to be a writer. It's just meant to be fun. It's just meant to be creative, to get those juices going, to like play around, and just the limits are endless. I mean, there are limits, but also we're here to just have fun, not to like make fun of anybody, whatever level you're at. The thing is just, I want to see your creativity. Just, if I can love Empress Teresa unironically, I can love all kinds of ridiculousness. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit the first chapter and the cover to the channel, that first chapter will be read here to hopefully help more readers find your work, because there are so many different kinds of readers. There is a book for every kind of reader and a reader for every kind of book. I may be it, I may not be it, but I am not the important reader. It is just your audience that needs help finding you and knowing that you exist in this wave of so much existing. And then the third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books. With that said, let's wait no further. We've got some great stories, some great authors, a good many people submitted to this one. So let's get into it without further ado. The prompt this month was, write a story that starts with a character somewhere in pitch darkness. Now, I said that in a very specific way to give people a chance to interpret that however they want. So here we go. The first story is by Mae Tanner. Delos awoke to hands tugging at his clothes. He scrambled away from his unseen assailant. A hand grabbed his arm, and he bit down. Blood flooded his mouth, and the mugger yelled. He bit again, ripping off a chunk of flesh that he chewed and swallowed. His opponent recoiled, retreating from combat. Moments later, Delos was alone. A week later, Delos's eyes narrowed. A lone alien marched along the alleyways toward his hiding place. He glanced around. This alley was a blind spot with no cameras. As the aliens passed his location, he pounced. His teeth sank into the sides of his victim's neck, and he gulped blood as his teeth found his throat. Afterwards, he dragged the body deeper into the shadows and feasted. Before departing, he bit the alien's ears off. He kept them as a memento of his first kill. Later, as he washed the blood off his clothes, he examined his nails. His mother had kept them filed down, but they were growing out now. His fingernails looked different from those of everyone else's he'd seen. Other people had flat nails. His were thicker, claw-like. He flexed his fingers. Maybe he could sharpen them. If they were sharp, he'd have more than his teeth to use for killing aliens. If he could, he'd kill them all. He stared into the distance. One day, he hoped to kill the alien that abused his mother. What had they done to her? Could he ever find her? Was she even still alive? His head drooped. What would his mother think of what he'd become? What would his mother think of what he'd done to the dead alien? Would she understand how hard it was to find food? Ever since he'd bitten that mugger, he'd craved raw meat. He tucked the newly washed clothes to the wall of his lair. They'd dry while he begged in the plaza. After sorting through his spare clothing, he donned his least worn shirt and pants. While he needed more clothes, he hadn't looted the alien. All of the aliens wore distinct uniforms. If he wore that, they'd catch him for sure. He made sure that nobody was watching, then left his lair for the plaza. Later that day, as he prepared to return home, a woman called his name from behind. He froze and turned. The shelter's senior administrator stood there. "Are you begging? Where's your mother?" He stared at her, licking his lips. "The aliens took Mama last month. I've been on my own ever since." He forced tears from his eyes. Would the tears influence her? He wiped his nose with his arm. "People don't like beggars. I eat rats." He hung his head. When I can catch them. He peeked up at the administrator from under his elbows. The woman stared at the ground, her cheeks flushed. I'm sorry. She glanced around. Come, I'll buy you dinner. He followed her to a restaurant where she requested a booth in the back. When the server came to their table, she ordered for both of them, requesting his meal contained no grains. He sent her a startling glance. She remembered what foods he couldn't eat. When the server brought their meals, he picked at his food, hiding each bite with his free hand. She reached across the table and pushed his hand down. Don't you hide from me. The blood rushed to his cheeks. Mama said not to let people see. I've seen your deformity before. I've known you since you were born. Okay. His offhand twitched as he forced himself to eat. He wasn't hungry. It had only been a few hours since he'd fed on the alien. She gave him a too bright smile. Speaking of when you were born, you had a birthday recently, didn't you? Would you like a piece of cake to celebrate? He stared at his food. Cake has grain in it. Her smile faltered. They make ice cream cakes. You can eat ice cream, can't you? Yeah, I guess I could eat that. She summoned the server to order dessert. When they left the restaurant, the woman clasped his shoulder. Where are you living? There's an empty building on the edge of town. She fingered his sleeve. Do you have enough clothes? He glanced at her. Not really. Meet me tomorrow morning, when the shop's open, okay? The next day, she took him to a second-hand store and bought him 5 outfits. He hugged the shopping bag. Thank you, ma'am. She gave him a genuine smile. Please, call me Lita. Thank you, Lita. She pulled an old communicator from her satchel and offered it to him. Here, my number is on the contact list. Call me if you need anything. He gaped at the gift. Why? You've stayed in my shelter. That makes you one of mine. He slipped the communicator into his bag and turned to leave. Sirens blared across the city. Delos froze. The plaza billboards darkened, and then cleared to show the shimmering form of the world ruler. My dear citizens, I bring you sad news. A patrol found a man's body in a blind alley. From the wounds, we believe a large animal killed him. I advise you to avoid places without cameras while we hunt the animal. The video flickered and replayed. This has a really interesting atmosphere to it. It doesn't really get into the descriptions of like the place, but it still feels cramped and compacted. And maybe that's because of how Delos is hiding in the darkness, that it gives this very kind of semi-claustrophobic feeling to it. But also because you have this feeling of he's trying to hide, so he doesn't want any of the eyes around him. Also, what an interesting combination. I thought it was actually going to be from a perspective of like an animal at first, until, it mentioned clothing, and then I was like, oh, okay, we're not doing an animal perspective. But also, what an interesting juxtaposition for this, of having him be like this street urchin, or showing the street urchin side and the animalistic side and the awakening of the animal that also wants to hunt these aliens. And then also the woman who's known him from birth. Very interesting. And definitely feels like a piece of a larger thing that is not like just started, but is already partially developed, if not much more developed. The next story is by M.K. McKeever. Shut in complete darkness, Pixie couldn't see as she tried to take the next step. A sudden alarm filled her as she seemed to fly through the air until she felt a hand wrap around her wrist, pulling her back. I think you're on the step, she could hear Giselle saying as she felt her feet back on a solid step. Just stay here until I get the light on. Pixie was starting to think that they should have planned better before going into their dangerous, powerful, infamous petty captor / sugar daddy's secret chamber to look for evidence that he had 2 people murdered. Her heart started to beat painfully fast as she thought about what Orsino would do to them if he caught them down here. She began slowly breathing in and out, just like Carl had taught her when she was 12. He had been nice, for a forger anyway. He showed her how to do a little of that, too. Forging. Probably one of her favorites out of Mom's old boyfriends. Finally, Giselle got the flashlight on, its bright beam shining down the long flight of stone stairs, leading somewhere they still couldn't see. Let me go first, okay? Giselle instructed, already taking the first step. Once she was firmly on it, she reached her hand out to Pixie. Not wanting to take time to argue, Pixie took the offered hand, gathering up her long skirt with the other and stepping off. It felt like they were going for that It felt like they were doing that for ages, carefully going off one step to the other, Giselle insisting on leading the way. Just as it seemed that it would never end, they came to the last step, the beam landing on a piece of royal blue oriental rug. Giselle shined the beam over the room, revealing rich damask tapestries, a sword still in its sheath laying on the floor, a leather trunk and another one made of carved wood, a tray of potion bottles atop yet another trunk. Even that looked like some sort of vintage hat box. The room was as opulent as the rest of the demesne, the rest of the dismesne well put together. This room had boxes stacked on trunks, things placed at random with no discernible rhyme or reason. Did we just find Orisno's storage room? Pixie wondered aloud. Then let's see what he's storing, Giselle said with a steely determination, marching toward the nearest trunk, a Baroque-styled behemoth decorated with subtle gold inlay. They both walked up to it, crouching down and shining the light over the keyhole smack dab in the middle, surrounded by an inlaid gold. Pixie put an arm out to stop her. "Wait, I think I can get it open," she declared before reaching up to her chignon and searching the twists for a hairpin. She had felt her maid use them that morning. Finally, fingering a piece of metal, she pulled it out and began to reach for the lock. Or she was, until Giselle grabbed her wrist, wild-eyed, hissing, "Are you crazy? We have no way to lock it back, and if he comes down here and finds it unlocked, he'll know someone's been here." Pixie pulled back, trying to get her wrist free. "It's a chance that we have to take." Somehow, she managed to wrench from Giselle's grasp. "I get it. You're still scared of him. So am I. But if we want a chance out of here, this could be our only chance to find enough for them to exile him, or toss him in the dungeon, or whatever they do to people like him in this crazy country." Giselle's face changed back to the one of steely resolve. "Are you sure that you can do it?" "I was raised by career criminal," Pixie said. "I can probably even work up a way to lock it back." "All right then," Giselle agreed, holding the light so that Pixie could see the lock. It took a minute, but the second they heard the satisfying click of the mechanism opening, Giselle forcefully pushed the lid open, shining the light on it to reveal the trunk was filled to the brim with glass orbs about the size of those rubber balls from which machines they sometimes have in the grocery stores, the big ones. Some were clear, while others were translucent to jewel tones, citrine, emerald, ruby, and amethyst. Pixie's heart plummeted. They couldn't have gone through all of this for nothing. Desperate, she snatched up a clear one, holding it to her face. Then that was when she saw it. A scene appeared in the glass that looked like a palace ballroom. A dark-skinned human woman in a violet and silver ball gown, with off-the-shoulders cuffs spun around the dance floor, her skirt spreading out, her cheeks flush. A golden-eyed puka in a dark room frock coat approached, smiling as he took the woman, now laughing in his arms. Pixie didn't need any prompting to put it together. "I think these are Soren's parents." Giselle didn't dispute the theory, though she furrowed her brow as if confused. What would Orisno be doing with this? Maybe he needed to show the assassin pictures of the targets, Pixie suggested. No, that didn't make sense either. Orisno would want to get rid of any evidence of his involvement, not just hide it in some secret storage room. Giselle picked up the citrine-colored ball, and both girls peered into it. Another image appeared, the same woman, this time in everyday clothing, her onyx coils tied up on her head, walking down a desolate-looking shoreline, holding the tiny hand of a toddler with oddly adorable little horns and golden eyes. Pixie's stomach began to slosh. Windy Goodfellow was just playing with her son like it was a normal day. It probably had been any other day. She never knew how close danger was. And Soren had to be what? 2 when this was taken? That was 5 years before they were killed. How long had Orisno been planning? Waiting. Every ball was the same. Windy walking through the goblin market on her husband's arm. Windy at another revel. Her face lit up as she talked with the Queen Gloriana of the Autumn Court and Queen Belladonna of the Night Court. Wendy standing on the edge of the cliff, staring down into the water. As Pixie peered into the up-close picture of Wendy's head and neck, it hit her. Orisno hadn't wanted Wendy just because his rival had her, or a fetish for humans. He had been obsessed with her. He had been stalking her. Taking 2 of the balls, Giselle stuffed them into her jacket. This at least goes to motive, she reasoned. This at least goes to motive, she reasoned, shutting the trunk back. Now, is reverse lockpicking a thing? I recognize the names from this from previously submitted stories, at least Soren, and also the courts. So I think this had to do with the Fae story that was mentioned in a previous submission by you. This has great suspense in it, and them moving slowly through. There's also the sense of mystery and supernaturalness to this castle with like the stairs that never seem like they're going to end, which helped really bring into the genre that it feels like it's going for, and give this sense of not just magic, but the normalcy of the magic in this that everybody is just used to. Very nicely done. The next story is by Egao Chan. It's called Meditations of the King. It's dark. I can't see a thing. An invisible weight presses against my head and my eyes. Soft, but also sturdy and unyielding. It's not the night. It's only darker. It's not a box or a prison. It's only fouler. A pungent smell lingers in the air. It's dull. It's thick. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Am I dead? Maybe. I haven't always been a benign ruler. I am often unkind to my subjects. I have done things only to my liking, without even a shred of consideration for those whose hard work has afforded me food and glory. I have lost my crown countless times. I have taken my subjects' needs for granted, and I have taken away many of the things they cherished, through wanton displacement or simply childish recklessness. Do I have regrets? Maybe. I haven't fathered a child, at least no one that I know of. They say kings often have harems full of wives and concubines, yet I have lost interest in the affairs of the sexes quite a while back. My kingdom and my realm, they caught my eyes and had my heart. How I wish that I could take one more look at the places that admired my grace, even the corners and crevices. What's more, I have much yet to taste, much yet to drink, much yet to enjoy, much yet to explore. Yet this thick and foul darkness binds me, rendering me powerless, unable to even turn my head, unable to see anything. I can still hear, but not much. Not clearly. The pungence has dulled all of my senses. I cannot even take my mind off of it, even for one single moment. Footsteps incoming. My servants? My subjects? Ah, look who's blinded by cheddar. This is the voice of one of my subjects, female, my caretaker. Ryan, I told you not to prank the cat with cheese. She lifts the heavy, thick darkness off my eyes, and then she picks me up. Your Majesty, you want some belly rubs? She asks with a deliberately childish, yet pleasant voice. Fine, I groan. You may give me belly rubs. I saw this meme going around of like putting cheese on the cat's face. He's having an existential crisis from cheese covering his eyes. Fortunately, he is a benevolent ruler. Egao, you always have such fun, interesting takes on the challenges. I love seeing what you do. Also, this cat has personality. I imagine he must have a cape. The next story is by Vaughan Farrar. It's called Aces and Eights. I'm not entirely sure what I was expecting to see, but an eternal void of nothing was not in my deck of cards. The darkness writhes like a nest of snakes when it ain't churning with a viscous goop, but mostly it just stares back like an abyss consuming my thoughts, taking them from me one by one. They're gone before I can even comprehend them. The only thing that has stuck with me is the hand that got me here in the first place. Even the cards are beginning to fade. When the lanky prick first walked into the saloon, I'd taken her for a fool. Just another sucker to add to the list of jokers that I'd hustled with card tricks and poker chips. With hindsight being all that, a masked woman walking through the doors probably should have raised a red flag or two. Usually my shtick had me fishing guppies from the bar, but the devil came and took a seat at my table of her own accord. I never did catch her face, but the cloth beneath her big brown eyes hung low and looked to cover a mighty big nose. A nose that seemed to bounce and jiggle whenever she spoke. You ever play with those cards, or do you just enjoy flicking them through your fingers? A little of both, I replied. But I don't just play for the good times. You got something worth playing for? She searched into her pocket and pulled out a watch made of blackened metal. It looked heavy, warped, and not like any clock I'd ever seen. How's this fit your fancy? I reached out to take a closer look. She quickly recoiled, waggling her gloved finger at me. Only winners get to touch. I scoffed at her remark. All right, well, what's it worth to ya? Everything, she replied, faster than the last words could leave my lips. Everything? Yes. You and your body, your mind, and your being. I thought she was joking, but from the part of her face that I could see, I could tell that it was straighter than an arrow. What are you, desperate for a husband or something? I laughed. Why don't you just ask for my soul while you're at it? She threw her head back and cackled, whilst the cloth billowed between her breaths. Your soul, sweetie, that comes with a package, but it's of no interest to me. Leaning back in my chair, I was both perplexed and amused. I cocked my head and chuckled. You're a strange one, miss, but I'm game if you are. At the end of the day, I was going to win anyway. Might as well win a weird-ass-looking watch. A cold draft blew through the bat wings as she uttered a word. Deal. Room chills aside, after a little shuffle, I did as she asked and dealt the cards. 5-card poker. 5 chips ahead. 1 discard, 1 bet. Winner takes the pot. Lose 'em all, lose the game. No folds. Sound fair? That's an interesting way of playing poker. But it sounds fair to me. It's generally hard to tell someone's poker face when said face is covered by a mask. But even her eyes showed no tell. They just stared at her cards and back at me the same way every time, without fail. The cloth would bounce on her face every so often. But other than that, there was no body language speaking to me whatsoever. After a little back and forth to make it look natural, being down to my last 2 chips seemed like a good time to start pulling the right cards. It was her deal. I'd already been given the majority of a straight jack. I'd already been given the majority of a straight. Jacks through 7. Weirdly enough, the black 4 somehow fell down my sleeve, and a red 6 then suddenly joined the party after a well-timed cough. Child's play. 1's the bet. I tossed my chip to the middle of the table. Not feeling bold enough to go all in, she tossed in one of her chips. Her eyes were making the happy crescent shapes that they do when people smile. In a rush to lose your watch, eh? Hardly. Well, we'll see about that. I laid out my cards. Read 'em and weep. Sorry, hun, but 5 hearts beats a straight. She winked at me as she revealed her flush. I was slightly taken aback when she raked in the 2 chips, but rightfully so. She'd won them fair and square. How the hell was she so lucky, though? My deal, I grumble, snatching the cards from the table. Nervous? No, I pouted. What's it matter? If I win, I get a new watch. If I lose, what? We do the same. We do some role play and I probably get laid. What's to be nervous about? I think you misunderstood our wager, hun. I don't want to make nookie with you. I want your mind, body, and being. Everything that is you will be mine. You know slavery isn't a thing anymore, right? Her left brow raised a little. Slave isn't the word I'd use for it. In your tongue, I'd probably say thrall, or better yet, a vessel. Whatever weird crap you're into, lady, doesn't matter. The game ain't over till it's over. And I dealt out the cards. Unfortunately, the hand I'd dealt myself was a heap of rubbish. Not a damn thing to work with, even under the table. I kept 1 ace and threw the rest back. That's when I noticed that she hadn't even looked at her cards. Everything all right? I asked. Yup. You want me to deal you a new hand, or? Nope. These cards are just fine. Suit yourself. I dealt myself 4 new cards. 1's the bet. She tossed in a chip before I could even look at my cards. Hers were still face down on the table, undisturbed. 1 to play. I tossed in my chip. It seemed like I wouldn't even have to get sly with my hand. I just dealt myself 3 eights and 1 ace. She still hadn't touched her cards for some reason. You ready? I'm looking at you, she replied. Her eyes were doing the crescent thing again. Well, okay. You can look at a full house. And I proudly fanned out the cards. That's a shame, she sighed. I was fairly sure I said no folds, and she'd already bet, so she had to play those untouched cards. Then, one by one, she flipped over a 2, another 2, a third 2, a 7, and eventually a 4th 2. Would you look at that? 4 of a kind. 4 2s? How did you... I couldn't decide whether I was surprised, angry, or impressed. I guess I don't really remember anymore, as even the thought of what a playing card looks like is all but faded. The memory of her slipping off the glove and extending a cold, scaly hand toward me feels so distant, yet it just happened, I think. My nose is starting to itch, but all I feel is another hand curl its fingers into mine as I reach up to scratch it. There's long, long fingers where my nose should be. There's my mouth, where my mouth should be. Where my mouth should be. Those are new, I'm pretty sure. They seem to bounce and jiggle whenever I speak. I don't know what I was expecting, but this was definitely not in my deck of cards. Excellent sustained tension in this piece. Also, it being a contained piece. Also, the devil lady in this has a wonderful cool that she just calm, collected. You know it ain't gonna be good. But also the guy who's the cheat. You did a great job balancing the two types of characters in this scene, the threat, and also keeping it, like, it's the attitudes of the characters that make it so tense. I know, it's all warm. Excellent work. The next story is by F. Jeremiah Chamberlain. Everything was black. Soares reached out into the darkness and grabbed onto something cold and metallic. He tried to pull onto it to get himself off of his back, but it broke and sent him careening back into the wall. At least, he thought it was a wall. Several hours ago, possibly even yesterday at this point, the Colombians blew several mines in no man's land as the First Imperial Army stormed its way towards Fortress Esmeralda Juana. When he could last see, one explosion swallowed up the crew's armored tractor and sent it tumbling into the earth. It had been unrelenting darkness ever since. After rubbing the sore spot on his head, Soares was able to find his way back to the side door by touch alone. He'd long ago moved the bodies of his crew out of the way and regularly came back to the side of the armored vehicle to try and force any of the exits. The commander's hatch, side door, and engine door were all stopped up by sand. Soares had spent the last several hours and what little strength he had left trying to force them open. His body was badly broken in the fall, and he couldn't put much force into it. All the same, he figured that enough effort over time would unearth him from his steel coffin. Soares braced his good shoulder against the door and the leg on that same side against the engine block. Every time he pushed, he felt the door give a little before pushing back. It clanked loudly against the broken locking mechanism each time. Soares couldn't tell if it was being trapped inside the armored tractor that made it seem so loud, but he soon gave up in fear that the wrong side would hear him. He slid down to the bottom, which was probably the ceiling, as shells outside started flying across the Solimoyes again. The violent argument between the Colombians in Fortress Esmeralda Juana and his fellow Brazilians in gunboat flotillas made him wonder what he'd even do if he could get out. He was sure that the directed attacks on Itapueo had failed and his comrades had been pushed back, leaving him behind enemy lines. Would they return for survivors? Would they return at all? The area had been ceded to the Colombians once before, close to a decade ago, out of expedience, but surely the Emperor wouldn't make such a compromise again, would he? This thought, more than the falling heavy-caliber shells, concerned Soares. His senses were already dulled, and the pitch black of his tractor's carcass, sealed away with the unbearable stench of rotting corpses and the molestation of flies, wondering when he would be next. The obsessive thudding of barrages against the bloody sand jolted the armored vehicle, rattling its loose rivets and sending so many tremors through his body that he hadn't known more than a few hours of stillness. His ears rang to the point of bleeding, or perhaps they had already ruptured while he could still see, and very little could be heard. But the thought of being left behind turned him cold. A pervading loneliness slithered its way through his weary veins and wrapped its fingers around his heart. He must have fallen asleep at some point. When or how long he couldn't possibly gauge, because he startled sometimes later at a noise from outside. The shellings had stopped, and every atom of his body finally had enough reprieve to ache. His ears still rang, but only enough to be noticed in dead silence. Soares paid closer attention to the sound. It was right outside the side hatch he most recently tried, and sounded like something rustling against the sand. He placed his ear closer to the gap in the door. There was no mistaking the snapping of bones, nor the meshing of flesh between teeth. The growl of satisfaction in between bites cemented a story. A black caiman had found a body nearby and was feasting on it. He shivered and pulled as quietly on the hatch as he could, in case whatever the alligator found wasn't filling enough. Stories of the reptile attacking and eating men had been rare and slightly more credible than myth. But then the Latin War broke out and swept the Amazon River basin into conflagration. Soares had heard rumors from the great siege of Iquitos, a few hundred kilometers upriver, that the local black caimans had turned into scavengers with all of the bodies, but he didn't believe them until he saw for himself just how the alligators stalked the First Imperial Army all the way from the Ashen Forest. Soares waited an unbearably unknowable amount of time before the reptile skulked off with the body. He waited even longer before trying the hatch again. This time, the bottom, which was above him, gave without any resistance. The top, which was below him, took some convincing, but he was able to push the sand blocking it away just enough for him to finally slip out. He was free at last, able to stand completely upright and even stretch his rebelling muscles. It was still completely dark, enough that he couldn't see anything. Perhaps it was nighttime. And yet, despite the darkness, he still felt the searing hatred of the harsh Solimios sun burning his skin. He looked up at where it was bearing down on him from. Nothing. He looked all around, and all he could see was pitch blackness. Fearful, he rubbed his eyes. Still nothing. He even went so far as to touch his eyeballs, which stung from the grime on his fingers. They were still there, and he could still blink, and yet... Shells fell around Soares again. He dropped and crawled back into the armored tractor. He pried it shut and curled into a ball as heavy guns washed the riverfront clean of life. Everything was black. This piece has such great setting, and the discovery and his unsureness of if he's blind or is just and has taken damage, or if he is just in this really dark place, and then the rejection of his being blind when he climbs out and doesn't want to believe that that is the state he's in, also because it's obviously so scary based on the circumstances in which it's happening. This piece is done fantastically. The setting is done so well. The next story is by Bob Frank, titled Tehom. I don't think I belong here. Not as I am now, nor as I will be. There is no life buried underneath inky waves. It's all the same. All the same. So I must descend. With a storm that brews within the empty dark, I set my foundation with an idea. It's something miraculous, emanating that strange thing which I will come to know as light, a simple ball from the ether, of which all will orbit. Such a little thing, but worth so much. For this, I will give everything, and I will have it grow within me. Lumps start to form as they crawl into orbit around my core. Segments connect to one another as I mold myself into shape. So many forms to choose from, but only one will do. So I break down and I reform. And I break down and I reform, again and again, until I'm finally perfect. Again and again, until finally, perfection. A simple skeleton, perhaps a farmer, maybe a lord, perhaps both. Next comes my veins, my muscles, my sinews. They scream out in agony, only for the numbing sensations of bliss to follow. My being warms and cools as pain and pleasure chase themselves. Sludge pushes itself through the hollow tubes within my structure. Faster and faster it goes to help solidify my new existence. My new existence, I think. Something happens around my face, or what will be my face. A smile. What a strange feeling joy is. Finally, I feel my chest rise and fall, the first of many breaths, the last of many heartbeats. And the truth is, no, I am alive. I swim, I float, I stand. Rising up from my grave, water pours away back into nothing. I stare at it, and the truth is realized. In this vast empty nothing, I am alone. I sink. The darkness calling me back to sleep, to fade back into it, to nothing, still forever. A different song calls to me. Of a promise made. From beyond, from within, from some place unknown even to me, a chorus that wants to live, even if I still never know their touch. But I'm afraid. Fear is cold and aloof, bizarrely rooted in joy. It boils within me, permeates my form, and finally is released in a sigh. So I raise trembling hands, and I know what must be done. I was born. I was alive. Now I descend. There is no word I know of for it. Only that I must leave, and in that, the darkness ends. My hands clasp my chest, my core, my heart, and finally they tear, and tear, and tear, deep down into the marrow as bones rip away, until finally I reach that drowning inky black. Light pours and pushes out. It takes root within me, sprouting into infinite possibilities, releasing soft, comforting glow as I become smaller and smaller. The light swirls up and up, rising to greater heights than me, until finally it explodes into wonderful dazzling colors, impossible to count as they run in all as so many directions, all going so far away, chorus in tow. And so for the first time I speak to them, my dreams, my hopes, my fears, all my love. Everything that is, will be, and never was, is for them, for they will never be alone, even when they change into things I can't understand. So I curl up and descend to the different existence, to my new being. When I arrive, I shall do as I have done here. I will wake up and dream again. I can't help it. It has to be because of Grumble's influence. Because I'm sitting here, is this a fetus? Is this a fetus in the womb? I mean, it is obviously a creation story and a creation, somebody formating in a way. But I can't help but be like, is this the perspective of a fetus? Partially, probably, because I did not read the fetus book myself to see how you would write a story from a fetus's perspective. But also, Bob, the sensory information in this is well done. The grounding of the character is well done. Like, I cannot tell you how often sensory information is so commonly forgotten with just like not grounding a story, and it really affects the story. So this has a very strong character presence to it because of the character voice of this piece and how much it takes into consideration senses and using descriptive words for feelings. Very nicely done. The next story is by Valorie Beaudyka. The yawning darkness of the catacombs engulfs me like a flash flood as I plunge into the bowels of the ruined castle. As I wander blindly through the claustrophobic tunnels, my mind drifts far away. A girl of 11 wanders the ancient burrows and crumbling ruins of an ancient chapel. She's searching for fairy rings and jackalope dens, but all she finds is a frightening timber snake. The young worm sinks its fangs into her hand. The girl screams bloody murder and flees through the forest. Tears are streaming down her cheeks. She's certain that she's dying. Her mother pulls her into her arms and squeezes her tight. She reassures her everything will be all right, and I believe her. I gaze longingly at the back of my hand. The pain is gone, but the mark left by the serpents. Pain like 1,000 burning needles raining down upon my body, piercing my flesh and stripping the skin from the muscles and the muscles from the bone. My head bounces against the stone floor of the crypt. In the darkness of the crypt, unfriendly eyes are flaying me alive with their gaze. I know this pain. I know it well. I'm 12 years old and surrounded by strangers and beaked masks. Smoke and incense swirl in the air, suffocating me. In the center of the ruined church, Median flag stands in the center of a circle painted with blood. He towers over my mother. She's screaming. He's got his thumbs in her eyes. She's screaming because his thumbs are gouging out her eyes. I want to scream, but the smoke is choking me. Tears well in my eyes. I grit my teeth and force myself to my feet. The pain subsides, but I can feel the presence in the darkness. I grip the patch that covers my right eye, conceals the Crow's Lord's gift and source of the sudden pain, the vestige of carrion, the holy relic for which everything had been taken from me. It would give me the edge. I blink the tears from my eyes, and with every blink, I see my mother's death. I can feel the presence creeping toward me. 40 feet, 30 feet, 20. I drop my hand to the gun on my belt. 15, 10. I inch my right to the torch on my belt. 5, 4. A shadow appears before me. The phosphorus head of the torch flares against the wall. The shadow staggers, and my revolver flies from my hip. I suppress the hammer, and the cylinder clicks into place. I squeeze the trigger and... Wait! Stop! It's me! My jaw drops, and my eyes twitch. I'm squeezing the trigger, and my thumb holds the hammer down. In the flickering light of the torch, a young man of amber complexion and shaggy black hair stands cowering before me, his trembling amber eyes fixed on the barrel of my mother's old cap and barrel army. standing before me in defiance of all good senses and my explicit instruction was Rio. Standing before me in defiance of all good sense and my explicit instructions was Rio, the scrawny apprentice gunsmith I'd left at the camp. I released the trigger and dropped the hammer to half-cock. Rio's body relaxes, and his lips curl into a crooked grin. Hell's bells, Joe. For a second I thought you were gonna... I slammed the butt of my pistol into his gut. Rio fell to his knees and sputtered out, "What the fuck, Josephine? You got a death wish, you stupid bastard? You said that I could come with..." "If you stayed at the camp," I pinched the bridge of my nose, "I should have sent you back to Mose soon as I realized that you were following me. I's a fool to think you'd ignore your teacher, but listen to me." Rio's eyes narrowed and his lips curled back into a sneer. "How could you two just expect me to just stay behind?" He spat venomously. "The only kin I've got left's been stolen away, and her only hope of rescue is some piss-stinking drunk wannabe hedge-slinger dyke drifter. I'm a lot of things, kid." I scoffed and rolled my eyes. "But I ain't no wannabe nuttin'. I am a genuine article, a bona fide, dyed-in-the-wool killer of men." I holstered my pistol with a flourish and returned to his glower. "And in the future, kid, when you call me dyke drifter, say Mrs., my friend. Lessen you'd rather be dead." Rio's eyes wavered and then broke off completely. "Fine," he pouted. "Going to send me back, then?" I drew in a breath and released it. "No. If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have stopped myself from plastering your brains all over the wall behind you." Rio glared indignantly, but before he could protest that he could take care of himself, I drew out my army revolver and shoved it into his hands. "Here, you know how to use this?" Rio gazed awestruck at the nickel-plated gun, his eyes shining like a cat with a fat mouse dead to rights. "Bass Frontier, Cavalier model, chambered in..." Rio twisted the barrel sideways and forward, pulling the cylinder with it and exposing 6 bullets suspended precariously between the extractor and the edge of the chambers. "4440, brimfire. Same as the gun that you almost shot me with." Rio smiled darkly, and a chill ran down my spine. A second ago, Rio was cussing me out. Now, he was morbidly joking about his near death. A temperament like that did not mix well with guns. Rio snapped the cylinder shut and slid the revolver into the pocket of his apron. "Whoever machined this beauty was a true artisan. I'll think I'll manage." "Good. Now stay close and stay quiet. With any luck, the knucker's out hunting and will be in and out by the time it's back." As we plunged into the darkness, I pulled out my mother's revolver and whispered a prayer to her, begging her to watch over us both as we descended into the dragon's lair, to guide my bullets to the knucker's heart, and to keep Rio from a gunslinger's path. This piece has such personality to it. The characters, in such a short amount of time, both Rio and Josephine were brought really to life with who they are and their relationship. Like, this did a really great job for me of introducing how these two get along in such a short amount of time without even saying, like, this is their relationship, because this is really how you establish characters and establish drive and show motivation and show characters moving forward, like just naturally living, and we get to peek into it. Very well crafted. The next story is by Lauren Chambers, and I think, is this the first time that you're submitting to LMIAY? Definitely check out his books if you want a different vibe. They are very creative, at least to me. They're interesting. I've read all 4 of them at this that are out so far, and they were interesting to me. I can't promise for anybody else. When in total darkness for the first time, you realize things. How loud the breath can be when unsteady. How different the darkness is from total blackness. The dark is easier. Blackness. Blackness plays with your eyes. Right now, I see a green splotch where I think the escape door is. But you can never tell distance in these situations either. The first time is always the scariest. But this isn't my first time. Maybe it's my 20th. 30th? My breath went still long ago. It just takes more now for someone like me. A finger grazes my ear. I turn my head. I used to get real scared at this point. The chainsaw revs and its fumes flood my nose. It's close. Maybe in the next room. Even that I can't discern. Most places like this have the chain off. I drove 10 hours to be sure that it was left on. My leg gives out. Stumbling forward, I trip over a 2x4 and fall to the cold floor. Someone had poked the back of my knee. At least that's what it felt like. My hands pressed into the slimy squish of silly string. I miss the good old days when signing up for extreme horror attractions was something to be genuinely excited for. Like back when I first googled the words McKeever Manor and felt a trickle of ice move down my leg. That was just a strange van ride with a hood over my head and some light fish hooking. "Who's there?" a woman asks. I think it's half of the college couple that signed up without reading the fine print. I don't read it anymore, only because it's a giant spoiler alert of what they're all... I don't read it anymore because it's a giant spoiler alert of what they're allowed to do to scare you. If they mention urine or clothes removed in the waiver, most people don't sign up. Or, I don't get surprised. A flash of a photograph sparks. It had gone off down the hallway and given me a snapshot view of the room. There's a trapdoor at the far corner. Men scream from down the hall, and I hear the group of killer clowns, just the attraction workers in their masks, grab the other attendees. Their howls clap against the cement floor as true terror grips them. The woman behind me grabs my leg. "Oh my God!" "It's fine," I say. "There's a trapdoor in the corner. We need to get to the lower level to get the key." "I can't!" I roll my eyes in the dark. "Yes, you can. Come on." She says something else. Maybe the same "I can't," but it comes out like a breathy laugh as she slurps up her tears. "Then you can't," I say. "Let's go." No. You need to help me. You have to help me. I'm so scared. We need to tell them to stop," she cries in a chain of wobbly notes. The screams go muffled down the hall, and then it's quiet again, except for the woman's sobs. She still has my ankle as we stay on all fours. I shush her, only loud enough to make my point. Then a door squeaks open, and I feel the breeze of the night hit the garage-like room. Wide-eyed, looking about the blackness, I realize we're not alone. But the woman won't stop sniffling, and I just know if the clown is there, watching, knowing every inch of this place like the back of his rubbery mask. She needs to let go of me. Maybe I can break away and run for the trapdoor. Hope the fall is less than 10 feet so that I can bypass the ladder. "We hear you," the voice sings. The chainsaw's engine rumbles closer. It must be within inches. But I remind myself the darkness plays tricks with distance. I could be utterly alone with this woman. Mind doesn't only tell you what's there, it also fills in what isn't. In the darkness, we always assume the worst. Even a child knows that. If you can't see what's in your darkened closet, you don't assume that there's simply nothing. You project everything. The woman breathes harder as the fear takes her, but she's still digging a hand around my ankle, nails pinching through my frayed jeans. I stay as still as an animal, eyes wide, scanning the black, and my heart starts to beat just a bit quicker. With each pump of blood into my brain, I remember what those frat kids, the ones now having their screams muffled with bandanas down the hall, had said when we were waiting in line in the cornfield 2 hours ago. If you're caught and you lose the game, the clowns take you to their funhouse. A footstep sounds in front of me, and I could swear my nose nearly touches something. A leg? The cold metal of a chainsaw? The smell is more like lighter fluid than gasoline. Before I can discern, it moves past me with another step. And just when I think it's passed over us both, and the next footstep is further away, the woman lets out a shaky breath, and the steps become stomps descending upon us both. She screams, and a Zippo ignites above my head. Tickled, I wonder if I'll see a rubbery face, but instead, it's her boyfriend staring down at me. But then his eyes flicker, and he backs a step. Still on my hands and knees, when I turn around, I see the woman behind me clutching my leg, in the firelit glow. There's orange hair, a blood smile, and her sobs turn to giggles. He screams, and the chainsaw roars into the room. 4 clowns race toward us as shadows on the wall. The metal lighter falls to the floor, still burning. Hands grab me from every which way, hoisting my body from the floor. I yank and fight, but it's no use. They take me away, and I'm finally in sublime terror. Bro out here doing Outlast trials for real. I can't help but think it. I mean, Clowns is a little different than Outlast trials, but also I really like the line of the 4 clowns race toward us as shadows on the wall. There is great imagery here, and one thing that I always have liked in your work because I mentioned it about other books, is like the descriptions of the setting and of the sustained tension from the horror and from the weirdness that has been in all of the books, which is also one of the things that has made me really interested in Lauren Chambers' stories. Also in general, just like the way that Lauren approaches his subjects. I just think that they are varied and they're very unique to his perspective. I don't know. I mean, I could say that about all books. Every book is unique to the perspective of the author because they're all invented by the author's brain. But something about Lauren's writing I just really like. The next story is by R.S. Alessi. Y'all coming in clutch with the last second post. I wake up in darkness. Immediately, I know what's happened. A byproduct of appearing dead during the day. The situation is one I've found myself in more times than I care to admit. I feel along the seams around me until I find a hinge and I push. Thank the Lord, the crypt is the kind that doesn't latch. Behind my head, the wall swings open, like an oven door, revealing the brightly lit room beyond. My eyes don't have time to adjust before I hear, "Holy shit!" I slither out and drop to the floor in a crouch. It's at this moment that I realize I'm naked. Also, I've got a long surgical incision running down my chest, and all of my innards are trying to escape through it. I cross my arms across my chest, more to preserve my structural integrity than out of modesty. Could I have a blanket? I ask the room. My eyes focus and I glance around. The room is no different from every other morgue that I've woken up in over the past few decades. Fluorescent lights, stainless steel tables, floor drains, and a wall of mortuary chambers. There's also the guy who just cursed. He's standing at a sink. The faucet is running and his hands are wet. "You can't be alive," he says. I try to sigh, which gives my lungs the opportunity to put in a fresh bid for rejection. "Please, sir, can I have something to cover up? I autopsied you 2 hours ago." His eyes dart to the door. "Your lab coat?" The suggestion is sensible and easy. He slides his coat off his shoulders and approaches me. I got a decision to make. A quick bite and I can patch up the damage he did to my chest. I can flee, leaving him to explain the missing body. Or I can command him. "Sit, stay." He sits. He stays. Mind control is useful. It's the all of the above option. I wrap his coat around me, cautious of the incision in my chest. I'm going to have to take care of it before I leave the room, which means I'm going to have to bite him. I'm sure that he's already figured out I'm no ordinary corpse, so the initial shock won't be as bad. It occurs to me that taking a forensic tech as a minion might have more upsides than down. "Quick question for you," I say. "How did I wind up in the morgue?" The tech blinks. Someone called in a wellness check. Police found your body in your apartment. Your landlady identified you as a resident, and since the death happened outside of a hospital, you got sent here. How the hell are you alive? I scooped your innards out." Said innards are still troubling me, but not as much as this revelation. A wellness check means another vampire lives in the apartment complex I just moved into, and they want me out. I don't feel attached to the place. It's the insolence that offends me. Not that I haven't done the same to other vampires. Best to put it behind me, at least for now. I got bigger problems. One more question. Do you want to die or become my minion? What? I lick my lips. If he can't figure this out in the next 10 seconds, the decision will be made for him. His eyes widen. You're a vampire. I grin. 5 seconds. A minion. Definitely minion. The tech doesn't struggle when I draw him into my arms. After a couple of minutes, I've taken what I need from him. He slumps back woozily. It's been a long time since I've taken a minion, and for good reason. I like moving from city to city, and the average human doesn't appreciate a nomadic lifestyle. There's also the inevitable whining. "You don't bite me the way that you used to," or "Why won't you turn me into a vampire?" As if the answers aren't obvious. Anemia is bad, and I try not to make my competition. "What needs to happen for me to get out of here?" I ask. I can get your clothes from storage. I'll have to sneak you out, maybe in that garbage can?" He nods to a large rolling bin in the corner, then his eyes track up to the mortuary chamber I dropped out of. "Someone's gonna notice that you're missing." I frown slightly. "You said my landlady identified me?" He nods. "And you've taken all of the pictures you need of my body." "Mm-hmm." "Then everyone's in agreement. The body in that compartment is me." Another nod. "The solution is simple. We'll fill it with another dead body. I bare my teeth with a smile. Got anyone you don't like? I love the way that you write characters. Also love your sense of humor. And I don't know if you realize or think about your books or your stories as having this sense of humor, but like also just the casual and the super casualness of the monsters that are just kind of going about their business and it's just all business as usual. I love the way that you write vampires and just the mundane situations that you stick them in. And I like you to like, okay, I was evicted freaking by another vampire. It's not like I haven't done it before. This is just annoying. I love it. It's so full of personality, and it is so very you. The last story of this month is by Just Clawson Works. How long had it been since he last moved? His head still stung, with unwavering pain, and the cold air from his AC assaulted his skin. The normally comfortable 69-degree temperature felt like Arctic winds burning away at his flesh. The texture of his jeans rubbed harshly against his legs to the point that it felt like his skin was about to rip open. He tried to remind himself that it was all in his head, just his senses discombobulated and recovering from the sudden shock of his actions. However, the scent of lavender and mint from the wax warmer burned his nostrils and tainted his tongue with a foul taste of raw tallow and artificial oil. No matter how much he spat, it could not get the flavor out of his mouth. Even as he tried to stand, the polyester and wool material cut at his palms and caused him to cry out in pain. Once again, he had to remind himself that it was all in his head. His hands were fine and didn't bleed at all. It was just his sense of touch now overburdened. His ears ached from the heavy and rapid footsteps running up the stairs outside. He counted each step to calm himself. 49 was the number that he came up with before the door to his apartment swung open and crashed into the drywall, definitely causing some kind of damage. He heard her frazzled and exhausted breath before she even entered the bedroom. Her ombre cherry perfume was more torture than the wax warmer. It didn't help Cirque's fragrance was a complete ripoff. Not that she could tell. It was a good ripoff. Acarus, what the hell did you do? Her voice numbed Acarus's ears. He could hear the shouts of her worry and disgust as she surely saw what he had done to himself. What is wrong with you? What in God's name were you thinking? He felt Cirque's shaking hands pulling him up and forward. His feet struck something thin and heard it scattered across the ground, most likely the screwdriver that he used to gouge out his weakness. Acarus took a few steps until he fought back, pushing himself out of her arms and collapsing to the ground, believing his couch was right next to him. Leave me be. They can't be fixed. I made sure of it. Acarus noticed the sudden surge deep inside of his friend, a wave of blue panic that shook him to his core. Genuine, distasteful disappointment bordering on hatred. I had to do this, Cirque. Baspian is a cocksuckering prick. That bastard's ass is jealous of all of the crap that he vomits from his mouth. Cirque's words dipped with all too familiar annoyance that Acarus felt. He was right, but he was right. It's impossible for someone like me to thrive in these pitiful wisps of mana. I was bound to fall behind. I would never have survived a semester. Acarus muttered out. His headache made it a challenge to string together his thoughts, not to mention the various new sensations and senses that were overlapping his mind. I was struggling, held back by my own ignorance and lack of experience. I could only see the surface, therefore I could only mimic what I saw. I relied on what I could see, and it held me back. That doesn't make any sense. You learn from watching, and to learn better, you blind yourself. Where's the logic in that? Cirque shouted back. Her voice shook with disgust and strain, as if she was fighting back the urge to throw up. Perhaps Acarus looked worse than he thought. It does. My Magnamia can't heal the damage, and it can't minimize the damage, so it'll be forced to adapt to the damage. I've heard the stories where Magnamia is able to replace limbs with pure arcane energy. Acarus rubbed his fingers together. His skin was like flint, and Acarus rubbed his fingers together. His skin was like flint on contact sparks, and Magnamia flickered out. He couldn't see them, but he could feel them. He sensed them falling down to the hardwood floor, shattering against the ground and spreading across oak planks. A few embers of magic slipped through the floor and descended downward into the lower apartments. Dancing light and free lines fluttered across the canvas of darkness that surrounded Acarus and painted out a picture forced into his mind. He could see his neighbor sleeping away on her couch. Even further down, he could picture Alistair, the landlord, working away on the blasted heater which seemed to hiss alive from the embers of Acarus's Magnamia. as it died against the firebox, a magical component. Limbs, Acaris. Hands and fingers, and only rarely, but no one's been stupid enough to blind themselves. You can't justify taking away your sight and just hoping that it'll work out. Cirque snapped another flicker to Acaris's fingers, and the whole room popped into his head, coated in a bright blue paint that illustrated the picture of his living room. He could see Cirque, fumbling with her cell phone. Each tap of the screen caused a mini shockwave of blinding light that Acaris could not unsee no matter how far he turned his head. Now that it was up close and in his face, Acaris realized just how sensitive his new sense was. Cirque's move caused a tidal wave of arcane energy to flood his mind and drown his eyes into blue veracity. He could see Cirque fumbling with her cell phone, or at least what he believed was her phone. He grumbled in annoyance and pain. From the light and swiftly snatched Cirque's phone out of her hand. The sudden movement gave pause to both. Even while overwhelmed by the assault of radiant luster, Arcus's hand still acted with a speed as he'd seen before. What the hell was that? Cirque spoke in a voice so low he almost didn't hear it. There was some things so horrible and complex that eyes refused to see them. Take away your eyes. Take away that weakness. I cursed myself to pitch darkness, and this is my reward. A new start to life. A chance to not be left behind. I did this to myself, and I will not regret my own actions. What an interesting start. Also like a mixture of magic, and it feels like urban setting because we've got cell phone. I think it sounded like we have a university. So what an interesting setting. And again, an excellent example of how to show character relationships, or how to show that they already like express these characters already know each other without stopping the story to explain it to us. Because we can just see them interacting, the way in which they talk to one another. That builds the intrigue and that builds the tension, because they are also getting to disagree and to show their different perspectives through the way that they are fighting each other. There were so many excellent stories this time, you guys. I mean, tell me when there is not, because you guys are all insanely thoughtful, insanely creative, and I love seeing the different way that you guys play with the prompt. So let me know what your favorite story was down in the comments below. The next prompt should be up when this video is going. Check it out if you are interested in being in next month's LMIAY. With that said, have a great week, happy April, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left. Plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?